Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Empty Pocket Speed Shop. I'm your host Lugs Wheeler, and this week we're working on the fastest chicken in the South. And if you understood that reference, then you're old, because that movie came out in 1983 when I was a little kid. So hey, thanks, that's your Stroker Ace reference for the week. Actually, we're going to get back to work on War Machine. I have gathered up a few more parts. We're going to start thrashing some more. I know, I keep saying that. We're going to get back to work on War Machine, and if everything goes exactly perfect and we don't have any hiccups, then we might be able to fire the engine up on this thing this week. So what I'm trying to say is, maybe in the next video we'll fire the engine up, because it's probably not going to happen this week. Stay tuned to another episode of Empty Pocket Speed Shop. All right, so I really do have to start thrashing pretty hard on War Machine, try to get this thing back together, because I'm probably not going to make it to the first race of the season anyway. But Etheridge Motorsports Park is opening up not this coming Friday, which will be the 21st, I think. 18th, 19th, yeah, something like that. Saturday the 22nd, Etheridge is having a regular testing tune from 12 to 6. So you're probably not going to see this video in time for that anyway, but you will see this in time for Friday night testing tune on the 28th and a regular scheduled race on the 29th. I'm not sure if I'll have War Machine ready to go for that Friday night testing tune or not. Looking forward to doing some gamblers races, daily driver and all run on that Friday night testing tune. But I've talked about in my videos before that if I didn't get War Machine done, I can race Roscoe. Well, I had Roscoe on Marketplace just to see if somebody would come along and buy Roscoe and free up some funds for my empty pockets, because my pockets are still empty. And somebody did. So congratulations to the new owner of Roscoe, which I'm sure he will not call the car Roscoe. But yeah, so a couple of days ago, Roscoe left my driveway for the last time. And so I did do a little walk around video right before the guy got here to get it. So I'm going to throw that in here so you guys can see my so long, farewell, adios, goodbye to my 79 Monte Carlo Roscoe. Well, kind of a sad day here, Empty Pocket Speed Shop. I decided to get rid of one of my hot rods, and out of everything that I have, Roscoe was the one that had the best chance of selling, I guess. And also, with all my bucket list cars, this was further down the list than some of the other ones that I have. So, threw Roscoe up on Marketplace a couple of weeks ago. Guy's coming to pick him up today. He's already brought the money, paid for the car. He's just coming today to come pick it up. So I'm loading up all the junk that goes with the car. Had a good time building the car, racing the car, cruising in the car, won a few races. So now it's on to let somebody else enjoy it. Hopefully they can have some fun with it and keep making some progress getting it put back together. Because I never did get around to installing the windshield wipers and a few other things that were deleted on the car when I got it. So, but there it is. All right. This will be my last chance to do a little quick video shot of Roscoe. Alright, so now that we know that I no longer have that car, I really got to get this thing back together because I've got Slow Motion, the old 87 Camaro that I have not introduced you guys to yet. You've seen it in the background of some of my videos. It is in the intro video, that black Camaro that's doing a burnout out here on the country road around close to where I live. That's Slow Motion, and it has been drag raced to death. The factory stock 305 that has probably 140 horsepower and it has 210,000 miles on it, but been really reliable. We take it to the track quite often and it never fails to fail. So it's one of those things. It never tears up. It just won't run consistent times. So it's not a good bracket car. Anyway, we are fixing to fly in here and get some work done on War Machine. I really would like to hear the engine fire this week. So that's my goal. That's my goal for this video, is to hear this engine run, because we fired it up on the run stand well over a year ago when I first had the engine built, and it's been sitting here in my shop wrapped up in a plastic bag since then. So we're gonna try to get enough stuff hooked up on this thing that we can hear the engine run. That's the goal. So let's fly in here and get to work. Okay, real quick, I want to talk about some of the things I'm going to try to get done. I'm going to get my shifter hooked up. I've got to modify the shift linkage mechanism to go from my column shifter to this 400 turbo. I'm going to get that done. I'm going to try to get the transmission cooler lines hooked up and the torque converter bolted up so that when we fire the engine, all that stuff can be bolted together and we can put fluid in the transmission and let that circulate a little bit. I've got to get a starter put on, the other header, spark plugs, got to get the fuel pump hooked up, fuel system hooked up, fuel cell bolted in, then put the radiator in and the cooling hoses on. Those are the things that I would like to get done. Then I got to mount the coil, put the plug wires on, run power to it. So, several things that we got to get accomplished. I could do one of my down and dirty, just like I did on my Studebaker truck or like the 55 truck. I could rig up my temporary fuel system and some temporary wires. I could put a starter on this thing and hook up the wires to the distributor and put the plug wires on it and have this thing running by the end of the day. But then I would just have to undo all that and put it back correctly. So instead of doing temporary stuff, I want to try to do it the permanent way, how I'm going to leave it when I get ready to start driving this thing around. So we're going to try to get all this stuff done in this video. So we better get busy because, as usual, I don't have any time. Look, it's not just my pockets that are empty. I don't have any time either. So I'm gonna jump in here and work as fast as I can. So I'll do a little bit of talking as I go through some of this stuff, and we'll do a little bit of time lapse as I work on some of it. And I'll keep you guys up to speed on how we're doing on time and money and whatever else it takes to get this thing going. Then maybe at the end of this video, we will hear an engine run. Stick with me. We're going to see if we can make it happen. All right. Had to do a little bit of running around the shop everywhere. So I did this off camera. My normal, hooked my solenoid and my hot post together. Already got the battery cable connected to the starter. That way when I put this under the car, all I got to do is take this wire, run it up to the solenoid that I've got mounted on my fender well. It makes things simpler down under the car. Plus, if something goes haywire, I can hook a starter button up here on the firewall really easily. I can do it up here. So it's one of the things I just didn't like to do, is put a forward solenoid up here on the firewall so that I can start the car. So I'm going to get under the car and put this on. I can't position the camera where we can see that, so I'll be back. Okay, War Machine. I'm going to give you an engine that's low to the ground with an extra big oil pan that'll cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you an extra 30 to 40 more horsepower. Give you an extra big fuel line that'll hold an extra gallon of gas. Shave a half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet. Get your prime painted and weighed. Ready to go out on that racetrack, you hear me? You're going to be perfect.
What are you doing? Are you reciting Days of Thunder again?
I'm trying to work here. Okay. Did my stroker ace reference a little bit earlier in the video, so couldn't let this episode go by without doing a Days of Thunder reference. So if you have not seen that, come on, man. Every gearhead has to see Days of Thunder at least once. So just in case you didn't recognize that little scene I just did, poorly, by the way, was Harry Hogg talking to the car up in the barn when he's building it, getting ready for Cole to race Daytona or whatever race they were going to. So, got to have a little fun, because putting that starter on wasn't. So the only thing that is true out of that entire speech was I've got an extra big oil pan. I don't know how much wind it's going to cut out from under the car, but it sure does make it harder to put the starter on. So there you go. Big oil pan. But starter's on. Got it. Okay. All right, all you party people. Once I got the starter put on, I can't remember if I filmed it or not. I don't think I did, but I hooked my starter wire up to the solenoid up on the fender well. Nothing exciting there that you missed. So my next step that I wanted to get accomplished today was to mount the coil, because I had to figure out where I wanted to put it. So let me, I made me a bracket. So let me show you what I got going on. All right. Those two standoffs on the intake are probably designed to mount some kind of throttle linkage or kick down cable linkage or something like that. I'm not using anything that will bolt there. I'm doing the same kind of throttle bracket that I used on the Studebaker that's specially designed for a 4150, 4160 style Holley carburetor. This coil, which is a MSD Blaster 2, this is not the high vibration part number, and my fault for not ordering the high vibration part number, but it says it needs to be mounted in an upright position. Okay, because of my cake pan and my engine is scooted back just a hair from where it was from the factory, not a lot, but a little bit. And since I'm still running windshield wipers and all that stuff, see how I don't have very much room over there? Because that stud that's sticking out beside my cake pan is where the transmission dipstick will come up to there. I don't have a lot of room to mount this thing upright. So I made this bracket. I'm gonna mount this bracket right here on the intake. And then I'm gonna put the coil bracket bolted to this where the coil can be upright right here next to the distributor. And hopefully it'll be out of the way of the carburetor. I guess I could grab a carburetor and stick it on there, just set it on there to make sure. I probably will before I get too crazy with this. So that's what I'm working on right now. I don't want to bore you guys with a bunch of fitting things and adjusting things and all that. So let me throw this all together and get the coil mounted, and I'll show you guys the finished product. About when I was ready to bolt this coil onto my intake, I realized this particular coil has a female end on it. And if there's any liberals watching that don't know the difference between male and female, I can show you. This coil has a female end on it. My distributor cap is an HEI style male connector, and the coil wire that came in my spark plug wire set that I bought is made for the male style. Fortunately for me, I had another MSD coil up in the cabinet, and it's a Blaster 3 that has a male terminal. So there's, for all you liberals out there, that's a male, the other one was female. Sorry, I didn't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm not trying to do that. But you know what, if that hurts your feelings, you're probably not going to be watching my channel anyway. Because working on cars is probably not your thing. So, get this swapped over. I had everything put together, completely put together, ready to bolt it to the intake, and then realized I couldn't do it that way. Or I could, but I was going to have to find another coil wire. And I didn't want to do that. All right, like I said, I'm not sure if that's the carburetor I'm going to end up running or not, but I know that I'm not going to put anything with a bigger footprint than that one. So this is what I ended up with. Got everything mounted, put in place. It gives me decent access to the top of the coil. Puts it really close to the distributor cap so my coil wire fits. It's down there. It's not touching anything. So I think it's going to work just fine right there. And it's fairly serviceable if I have to replace the coil. Not too awful bad anyway. All right, let's see what else I can get done here. Okay. I think what I'm going to do next is try to get all the fittings put in for my cooling system. Since I do still run this thing on the street, I keep the defroster and heater hooked up. So I've got let me find them. Okay. So just factory style heater hose connectors. Okay, I think I got everything hooked up to the cooling system. Somewhere in my videos, if I didn't edit it out, I'm not sure, I talked about my valve cover hold downs. I had some of these in my junk drawer, but I only had 6. And I don't have everything that I need. So when I was at the parts house yesterday, I looked and they had 1 pack of the big ones on the shelf. Well, a pack is 4, and technically you're supposed to have 4 per side. So what I'm going to do, just for now, I want to go ahead and snug down the valve covers, just so that's another thing that's already done. I'm going to use these on the bottom side and the ones that I found in my drawer on the top side. And I think I'm in pretty good shape on these, as far as they're less likely to leak. And I say that because, and watch, this thing will probably leak like crazy and I'll dump oil everywhere. But the land for the valve cover on these aftermarket heads is taller. It's machined, so it's a better seal surface. So and the gaskets I bought are the good gaskets. So the weak point is these Moroso valve covers. And there's probably a bunch of people out there saying, well, why do you want to use those old beat up Moroso valve covers anyway? Because they're the thin, cheap kind that are prone to leak. That's all true. I like the old school stuff. I like the anodized Moroso valve covers. these are the real deal. These are not something that somebody's made lately. And I know you can buy brand new anodized Moroso valve covers too. I can't afford those. These were actually, you know what? I think my buddy at Baker Engine Machine and Fabrication, I think he gave me these. So I don't even think I paid anything for these. I've got a set of gold ones that I paid for at a swap meet. I also have the gold air cleaner, which is laying over there. So I bought some gold anodized small block Chevy valve covers. They're laying over there in the trunk of my 56. On my big block that you guys have never seen because I haven't taken the plastic bag off of it yet, I've got some gold anodized Moroso big block valve covers. And Baker Engine Machine gave me those too. Or maybe I may have paid him $1 or $2 for them, but I think he felt sorry for me because I was spending too much money building engines, and he had them hanging on the wall. So if I did pay anything for them, it wasn't very much. So I always want to give Chris over at Baker Engine and Machine to all the credit in the world because he's put together some really nice engines for me. And occasionally he throws me a bone. Thanks, Chris. All right. I believe I'm about out of time for today, but I will be back out here tomorrow. Still a slim chance I can get this thing fired up, but really tomorrow's all the time I've got. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, it's all the time I got for today, but I will be back out here tomorrow. So for you guys and the magic of television and YouTube and phone tablets and whatever method you're using to watch my show, I appreciate you watching, by the way. If this is your first time watching Empty Pocket Speed Shop, like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends about it. If you don't like it, tell them that you do anyway. Maybe they'll like it. Who knows? But I'll be back out here first thing tomorrow. We're going to carry on with this thing. I just happened to run out of time for today. Got several things done. Getting closer. So tomorrow I'll make a little bit more progress. Still hopeful that on this video we fire this engine up and hear it run. Maybe we can do it. All right. Next thing I'm going to do We'll try to get my spark plug wires put on, and these are the same headers that I used on my other engine, the one that was in Roscoe that I just sold. And I didn't have any interference issues with any of my plug wires with the shorter spark plug. I'm not running super short spark plugs, but they are shorter than your standard AC Delco plug. Got one plug that looks like the wire is going to touch the header if I don't do something with it. So I'm going to take my pry bar and dimple the header. It doesn't hurt anything to do that. A couple of the pipes are already dimpled to make clearance for the spark plug wires. Like I said, these headers I bought used at a swap meet a long time ago. One of these days I'm going to have to buy some new headers. But for right now, this is what I've got. So I'm going to dimple this header tube, and then I'm going to try to get my wires put on. I got a couple other things to hook up. So I've got to get my distributor cap put on, route all my plug wires, make sure they're not going to be touching the headers and stuff like that. Then I'll run my power wires to the coil, hook everything up electrically for my distributor. And if I can get that done, then I've got a few more little things to button up, and we'll just be one step closer to getting this thing fired up. So let me get busy. Okay, got all the plug wires on. Had to dimple one more header tube. Don't know if you could tell that during the time-lapse stuff, but the number 4 plug, the boot was going to touch on it too, so I dimpled it. I think that just has to do with the different shape of the aftermarket heads I'm running. But I don't have everything tied off and all that kind of crazy stuff just yet, but they're all on there. Now I'm going to get my wiring diagram and the plug that plugs into the distributor and see what I gotta have to get power and my tack wire hooked up and things of that nature. Okay, here's what we got today. I've got my plug wires on. Like I said, I don't have them all tied up and secured where they need to be. I'll do that a little bit later. But went ahead and hooked my heater hoses up too while I was standing here. So got those hooked up. I've got to put a block off plate where the fuel pump goes and take that rod out of there because I'm going to be running an electric pump. Get my fuel system hooked up. I'm actually pretty close. I'm missing some parts for my transmission, so I can't finish hooking the transmission up just yet. But if I can get everything done on the engine, I'll leave the torque converter unbolt so that it doesn't spin the transmission over. And I'll go ahead and fire this thing up so we can hear it run. But I've got to figure out the carburetor situation, get some power hooked up from my ignition switch, and we'll be ready to start this thing pretty soon. So, making some progress. That's all we can do. All right. Final day to be able to try to get something done on this thing. You've seen everything that we've got going so far. I'm gonna stop trying to make progress on the transmission, getting it hooked up and everything, because I'm just out of time. Because I really would like to hear this engine fire up. So what I've got to get done is put some terminal ends on my hot wire and my tack wire coming from inside the car, hook those up to the coil along with the wires that go to the distributor, finalize that. I ended up not having the correct fittings to be able to try to use that Demon carburetor that I had sitting on there. So I've got just a regular 4150 Holley 750. It's not the carburetor that I would want to race on this car, but it was a running carburetor when I took it off. Who knows if it'll still run or not. It's been sitting on the shelf for a long time. So I walked around off camera, gathered up a whole bunch of fittings and crap like that I need to put my fuel lines together, get my fuel pump put on. I've got to put the fuel pump block off plate on the side of the block. So I got a lot of stuff to try to knock out. I'm going to try to fly in here. I'm not going to do as much talking. I'm just going to try to get some of this done. And then I'll talk once I get some of this knocked out and we're ready to start trying to do something as far as firing the engine up. So I'm going to do a lot of time-lapse video right here. If something really pertinent comes up that I need to explain what I'm doing, but really I'm going to be hooking up wires, hooking up fuel lines, things like that. It's nothing too technical. Hopefully everything will go smoothly. I don't even know why I say stuff like that. Nothing ever goes smoothly. I walked around, no joke, I didn't have the camera on, over an hour trying to gather up fuel line fittings and stuff like that. Because for those of you that, I don't use a lot of just regular hose fittings and stuff like that on my hot rods. I try to do the AN style fittings. They seal really well. You don't have to worry about them leaking once you get them all together. They're easily serviceable, a lot of stuff like that. So let's get with it. I gotta try to get some work done. All right, I'll stop my time-lapse stuff for just a second. No, I don't want to just do everything in time-lapse, but show you guys what I've done real quick. Got the coil all hooked up, and that does have my ignition wire that goes into my hot switch inside the car, the tack wire. Everything's wired up on the distributor. Got the carburetor installed. Don't know if it'll run, but it's installed. Had to remove the plate and the rod that you could put a mechanical fuel pump on and put that block off plate on. Got my ground strap on the side of the engine here. Everything hooked up. The only thing I haven't done is this one going to the carburetor. I'm going to hold off because what I want to do, once I get my fuel pump hooked up and some fuel, I'm going to turn the pump on and let it back flush this line all the way to the front here, because I do still have to, I've got to install my fuel filter and all that up here too. So I've still got a little bit of work to do up here, but I'm going to try to get the fuel pump hooked up in the back. So back here, got the fuel cell sitting in place. It's not, I've got the bolts in the holes, but I don't have the nuts on the bottom yet. So there we go. Everything's here. This is a couple of the lines that are supposed to come off the fuel cell, get hooked up. Threw the battery over in the battery box, but it's not hooked up yet either. Underneath the car, this bracket is where I'll bolt my fuel pump up to. And then there's my pre-filter is hanging back here. There you go. You can barely see it, but I've got to redo that. But I've got some fittings I got to change over on the pump. And then I've got to get these lines connected. Then I'll be ready to put some fuel in it, pump some fuel up to the front, and flush this line out. I just want to do that because the car has been sitting here with no fuel cell, and the fuel lines have just been open for a year. Pretty much a year, probably 10 months anyway. So I want to make sure no dirt daubers have built a nest inside my fuel line or anything like that. So we'll do that, and I'll probably take this filter apart that's back here on this end before I turn the pump on, make sure everything's good to go there. So I will get busy. Okay, let me catch everybody up on what I've got done, but if you can see, I've had a little bit of excitement here. All right, got all of the fuel line and stuff. I think I had all that done. Everything, stuck the radiator in here, but I just got it zip tied in. I'm way past out of time for this week, but I really wanted to hear this thing run. So let me get back here. All right, got the fuel cell in here, hooked up. kind of doing fuel cell things. Got the battery in there and hooked up. Got something leaking back here, so that's great. That's the pump itself leaking right there. Always something. Alright, so fuel pump's leaking a little bit out of that screw right there and somewhere else. Something else. Alright, so fuel pump's leaking, so I guess I'll have to replace that. I'll verify that it's not just the lines. So, had some problems with this junk carburetor, like I told you guys I thought I might. So here's what I got. I fired it up because I wasn't sure if it would even start, so I didn't even turn the camera on for that. I did get it to start. So what I'm gonna do, it blew I didn't have any clamps, or I had 3 clamps. I tried to zip tie my bottom radiator hose on there, and it worked for a minute, and then it quit working. So that popped off of there. So what I'm gonna do just for this week, because my goal for this week was to hear this thing run, I am gonna turn everything back on, and I'm gonna fire it up so that I can have it running in this week's video. And then we'll make some more progress next week. All right. I'm not gonna let this thing run very long, but I stated at the beginning of this video that my goal for this week was to hear this thing run. I'm going to hear it run. You guys are going to hear it run. It's going to be running on the video, and then I'm out of time for this week. But I can't let it run long because it blew that bottom hose off, and I don't have what I need to fix it. I don't have what I need to fix the fuel leak in the back. I don't have what I need to fix half of this stuff. But I did, we are going to, so let me just fire it up and let it run for just a minute. I did do, on most of this stuff, I did what I said I was going to do. I've got it hooked up the way it needs to be hooked up. So my fuel pump wires, ignition switch, and all that stuff is wired to the inside of the car. But I'm just going to flip everything on and start it out here on the solenoid. And that way I can do it, because I don't have my throttle cable hooked up. But I do have to turn the ignition on from inside the car and the fuel pump. Okay. Let me turn everything back off before I hurt something. And it's just where that blew that hose off. As soon as the thermostat opened on it, it blew that hose off, so that's what it was. As soon as the thermostat opened back up again, it's just blowing steam out of the water pump and everything. So there we go. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Empty Pocket Speed Shop. Got a lot of work done and a lot of parts installed. We made War Machine run. So, just like the title of this episode says, Days of Blunder, I'm going to tell you, didn't have the right stuff to block off the vacuum ports on the carburetor. Didn't have the carburetor that I wanted to use, but hey, I did make that carburetor run. I probably should have videoed some of that, me playing with the carburetor, trying to get it to run. But man, I was just really trying to thrash to make this thing run so that I could get that into this week's video. And just for you guys that know, I'm hoping to have this video out today. It's Friday, but it is Friday at like 7 o'clock. So maybe I'll stay up late enough to get the video edited and out on YouTube tonight. Hope I do. But blunders all around. The fuel pump is leaking. The fuel line is leaking close to my fuel filter up here. And it's a brand new fuel line that I just made, but you know, Amazon stuff, so I may have to make another one, or the fitting may be bad or whatever. Didn't have the right clamps for the coolant hoses, didn't have the right bottom radiator hose to start with, so my radiator is zip tied in here so that I could make one of those flexible bottom hoses work. It's just days of blunder all around this week, but we heard War Machine run. We'll see if we can get some more stuff done next week, and we're going to keep making progress. Eventually, I'll have this car running and driving again, but got other things going on that are requiring some of my attention. But as usual, thanks for watching. If you are a new person to my channel, please like, subscribe, share, tell your buddies about it. Hope you enjoyed the video. I had a good time making it. I'm thrilled that I am able to hear this engine run. And just so you guys know, I wasn't able to show you everything on it, but first fired it up, good oil pressure. The engine sounds good. The timing is way off. I put the timing light on it real quick just to kind of get an eyeball of where it's at. It's not even close, but it's close enough that it's starting. I think I'm going to be able to make that carburetor run good enough that I can use that for breaking it in. All right, that's it. That's all I've got for this week. Make sure you stay tuned next week. Thank you for supporting my channel, and see you guys on the next episode of Empty Pocket Speed Shop.